Hello everyone and welcome back to another album review, and in this video I'm going to review //2 by Slikback. In my previous video I basically talked about the debut album from Slikback, a massive 30-track album that went for around 100 minutes that had so many different material to it. If you haven't seen this review already, I highly suggest it because this is where I go more in depth about the artist and what he actually offers in this entire album when it comes to the many different genres that are combined so well together. And like I said, I find it to be one of the most intriguing electronic albums to come out this year. With that being said, what I didn't expect at all was a sequel like 3 to 4 days after the release of the first one. This is something that caught me off guard. And the sequel over here, the second part, is also 30 tracks long. It's another long release that pretty much goes to sort of the same directions. The difference though is that unlike the first release, this one over here, the second one, is actually on Bandcamp for free. So this might give the impression that this second album, even being so long, is actually like sort of bonus material. The one thing I can say about this album is that it's a bit more straightforward. It just focuses a lot more on just instrumental trap music. Unlike the first one that had so many different combinations of sounds together, the second one feels being a bit more straightforward to its sound and what it tries to present, which is something that we saw becoming more of the case with like the second half of the first project. Basically after the track 10, we mostly got some abstract instrumental trap moments. With the case of the sequel here, almost all of the tracks go into this direction, and it's also a much shorter album. Well, not that much, but compared to 100 minutes, this one is only 80 minutes. It still makes for a big project, but as you can guess, most of the tracks over here are quite short. Pretty much all of them go around the second and the third minute mark, with only few of them being 1 minute long. So it would feel more that we have more of like unfinished bonus material, and in some occasions the production and the sound can become a bit rough. And it's very intriguing once again how many different sounds he uses in order to portray a very intriguing aesthetic with some of those occasions. Do not let that distract you though and give you the impression that the sequel over here is just bonus material and that it's inferior to its predecessor. Instead, what I would say is that I enjoyed the second part more than the first one. Not by a mile, but I do end up finding more intriguing and more unique and exciting elements into the second album rather than the first one, which is bizarre considering that I found that when the first album ended up having all of those different trap instrumentals, I felt that this is where the album went slightly downhill in some occasions. This is not the case with the second part though, as I feel that this album definitely presents some of the better and some of the most unique, most energetic and most chaotic and abstract tracks that go into this sort of sound. And I absolutely fell in love with so many different moments over here. Even if it's more simplistic and more melodic in some of the structures, there is such a great variation of moods and sounds that further enhance the experience. And yeah, I would actually say that the second album is where we see the greatest highlights, even better than most of the material that were presented on the first one. This project also starts and ends with some of the most chaotic and the most abstract and experimental tracks. The Aita is a very bizarre introduction, and then we have Insomnia, which for me it's one of the tracks that I would like to be a bit bigger rather than just 1.5 minutes. but I find that the bass response and the sounds on this thing are absolutely amazing. I love the noisy passages. It's definitely one of the most intriguing moments out of this whole project. Then this is where we get into the more minimal beat-centric tracks, with highlights on the first moment being tracks like NCPA, which has a very nice set of sampling and percussion to it, which, like I said, in some of the occasions, like with the first album, it gives the feeling that you're listening to percussion that feels like traditional African music, and I feel that in certain occasions in the second album, it gets enhanced even better. Then I would say that tracks like Blade, Snake X and 32-bit are not some of my favorite moments, but there are definitely still elements that I would love about those songs when it comes to their minimal beats and some moments of the production that would feel really refreshing. Ox is the first weak moment for me. It is basically one of the more simplistic and one of the more average trap instrumentals over here. I don't find the beat to be that engaging, and I also find the melody to be quite simplistic. It is basically like the track Black in the previous project. For all of those reasons, I also find Ox to be one of the weakest moments on this second album. But then the album quickly redeems itself with the track DEMI, which is absolutely amazing. Love the trap instrumental to it, love the beat, love the melodies. It is such an excellent track. And then we get into EART, which is possibly my favorite moment in this entire project. I absolutely love EART. Even if it's a really short track, I feel that it's so full and so well developed with sound and very well structured. This track has some 8-bit chiptune sounds and the melodies just get so well fused together, and this beat and this bass, they're just so sickening. It's such a great track. JENE is also one of my favorite moments. I absolutely love JENE with its beat, with the use of sampling, the drumming when it comes to the second half is amazing. It's another one of those tracks that I would hope to be bigger because it's the shortest moments, going for 1 minute, and I would love to see this track get more developed. But for what it is, it's definitely one of the best moments. Then we have the track Waraji, which is one of the tracks that has features, and once again I feel that it's one of the most underwhelming moments, and it's not because of the features, but I find that the instrumental, which is accompanied with the vocals, it just feels quite lackluster. KUSH has some amazing sampling to it. I absolutely love the track KUSH. Neku is one of the decent moments, and then we get NULL, LAMA and RUKIA, 3 amazing tracks back to back. LAMA in particular has some amazing sampling. I like how it's combined with all of the vinyl pops, with this bass response that is absolutely filthy and sickening as fuck. I absolutely love this song. Now, 777, one of the most unique moments, one of the most melodic ones. It basically gives me an impression that I'm listening to a witch house track. It is melodic, it is dark, and I find it to be quite engaging. It's possibly not one of my favorite moments, but I like the sentiment and the idea behind this. It's definitely one of the more unique and one of the more melodic tracks out of this whole project. With track 20 is where we get into the final leg of this album, where we see lots of speedy looped samples, which is the case with tracks like Akha and SOMA. I find SOMA to be one of the greatest moments over here when it comes to its very clever sampling accompanied with a very good beat. It is an absolute banger of a song. However, unfortunately, when we get into the last leg of this album, we actually get some of my least favorite and some of the weakest moments in this project, with tracks like HYDE and HEADLESS, and then we get into some sort of bonus material, like the 27th track is a Slikback remix, but it's an amazing one. I absolutely love this song. It is very dynamic. I love the sampling to this thing. It is such a powerful and banging song. Then we have Slick Edit 1 and 2, which basically the first one is the most intense and the most chaotic moment out of this whole project. It basically feels a lot like some of the material we see in some of his EPs, and I think it makes for a very good moment. On the other hand, Slick Edit 2 feels a bit unnecessary. It feels more of like an ambient track that has a series of sampling to it, and that's basically pretty much all about it. And then we end with a track Vai, which serves as a sort of an ambient moment that has an intense beat in some occasions. I feel that it's an okay finisher, but not one of the greatest moments over here. But with that being said, getting into this whole project, I find that if you are familiar with the sound of Slikback and you have heard the first one, I absolutely recommend the second one. And especially if you have the impression that trap instrumentals can't be abstract or experimental or just out there, then you definitely need to listen to this project because it's going to change your mind. Such a refreshing use of modern sounds with so many different elements to it. Whether it has to be traditional African percussion, tracks that fuse elements of industrial, noise, deconstructed club, all of the elements are so well put together and in my opinion makes for an even better sequel and an absolute recommendation for albums of 2020. I'm going to give this album an 8- out of 10. What's your opinion on this project? Like it, dislike it, why, and what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.